You won't believe what my own brother did. He proposed to my fiancée, his ex, right in front of our entire family, at a dinner he hosted. And that was just the beginning of the absolute nightmare that tore my family apart. Okay, so for some context, my brother, Mark, and my amazing fiancée, Jen, actually dated about a year ago. It was brief, just a month back in August 2022. Mark, being Mark, got bored and dumped her because he apparently never wanted to settle down. I was living in another state then, completely oblivious to this short-lived romance, and had no idea who Jen even was. Fast forward to October, I moved back home, and there she was. Jen and I met at a bar, and it was instant. She was, and still is, the most beautiful, intelligent woman I'd ever laid eyes on. We spent a few magical weeks getting to know each other, and by December, we were officially together. I was serious about her, so I decided it was time to introduce her to my family at Christmas dinner. I'm usually pretty private, so my family only knew I was seeing someone, not who. When my parents asked for pictures, my phone started getting passed around the table. That's when Mark saw her. He absolutely blew up. Right there, in front of everyone, he called me a brother and demanded I break it off with his ex. I was stunned. I refused, of course, and later, Jen confirmed their history, giving me the honest, unvarnished details of their breakup. It took a few weeks, but the shouting matches eventually died down, and I actually thought he'd gotten over it. I mean, it was 1 month, right? This year, on Jen's birthday, surrounded by both our families and her closest friends, I asked her to marry me. The moment was perfect, emotional, beautiful, until Mark, once again, completely lost it. He exploded, yelling about me proposing to his ex. My sisters and I immediately shut him down. We were just done with his entitlement. Now, this past weekend is where things really went off the rails. Mark had been oddly quiet for about 2 months after the proposal. I figured he was just giving me the silent treatment, which, honestly, I was fine with. Then, out of the blue, he invited Jen, my parents, my sisters, and me to his apartment for a family dinner. It felt weird, a little too saccharine, but my parents and sisters were going, so we agreed. The dinner itself was surprisingly nice, low-key. Afterward, we moved to the living room, chatting normally, when Mark suddenly stood up. He announced he had a big announcement, launched into this long, overly dramatic speech about how happy he was to have his family around for this moment. Then, to my absolute horror, he got down on one knee, pulled out this cheap, tacky ring, and asked Jen to marry him. The air in the room just evaporated. Jen looked utterly confused, mortified. She demanded he stand up, put the ring away. My dad, bless his heart, started to lunge for Mark, but I was faster. I saw red. I felt a surge of white-hot rage that I hadn't known existed. My fist connected with his face before anyone could even react. I don't even remember most of what he screamed after that, I was too angry, but I caught something about wanting to show me Jen wasn't really into me and just wanted to get back at him. Before I could do anything else, my parents rushed me out, promising to handle Mark. It's been a few days, and honestly, the anger hasn't faded. It's still a churning pit in my stomach. The worst part? I'm terrified this whole insane ordeal, this public humiliation, might make Jen have second thoughts about marrying me. By the way, if you're still with me, make sure to hit subscribe, more unbelievable stories are coming. The immediate aftermath was a blur of righteous anger, but I knew I needed to talk to Mark. I needed answers, for Jen's sake and mine. Jen and I met him, and I started by apologizing for the punch and not warning him about the proposal. He waved it off, but I pressed him about his relationship with Jen. He confirmed what Jen had told me. A few weeks, he got bored, he broke it off. When Jen, with a quiet strength that astounded me, asked if he still had feelings, if he regretted anything, he said no. He admitted she was more attractive now, but no feelings, no regrets. His excuse? He didn't like seeing his ex with his older brother and claimed I violated him as a man. I reminded him, with as much calm as I could muster, that I had no idea they'd ever dated. He just shrugged, insisting I should have broken up with her anyway. Then came the real gut punch. He admitted he'd been talking to a friend who knew about him and Jen. This friend put the idea in his head that Jen knew we were brothers all along and was only with me to get revenge on him because she was still hung up on him. His proposal? A twisted test to see if she'd dump me for him. Jen, with incredible composure, shot down every single one of his flimsy assumptions. She'd asked about him once after their breakup, and the places he mentioned? She'd hung out there with friends long before they even met. The idea that she would pursue me, just to get back at him was a deeply offensive accusation. He mumbled a half-assed apology, still trying to make her see it from his point of view. She simply said she hadn't seen any resemblance between us until we were standing side by side, that we acted nothing alike. He just said, okay. The conversation ended with Mark declaring he couldn't support our relationship and withdrawing his attendance from the wedding. I calmly told him he didn't need to worry, because he was already uninvited. 4a. While things were tense but stable. My parents were unhappy about Mark being uninvited, but my sisters were completely on my side. Then came my younger sister Sophie's birthday. Her boyfriend proposed, and in the joyous aftermath, she innocently asked, "Teddy, I know Mark's banned from your wedding, but you won't care if he comes to mine, right?" My mom, overhearing, turned on me. She called me unreasonable, accused me of holding a grudge to be petty. I tried to shut it down, but she kept pushing. A few days later, she showed up at my house, doubling down. She actually said I was insecure about Mark and Jen's brief past, that I was taking it too far. That's when she delivered the ultimatum: if Mark wasn't re-invited, she wouldn't come to my wedding either. My response was probably colder than I intended, but I was beyond fed up. "Then toss your invite in the trash," I told her. "I won't beg you to be there." When she asked if I was serious, I reminded her it wouldn't be the first event she'd missed because of Mark. That sent her spiraling, screaming about me throwing her past mistakes in her face before she stormed out. Soon, my phone was blowing up with calls and messages from family, all siding with my mom, urging me to keep the peace. Jen started getting calls too, but she thankfully didn't engage. My mom's side of the family declared a boycott, but my dad, his side, and my sisters stood firm with me. Even Mark, when I called him, reiterated he didn't want to come and wanted to be left out of the drama. But the worst was yet to come. About 2 weeks after her ultimatum, my mom showed up at my door again, claiming she wanted to clear the air. We let her in for dinner, hoping for some genuine reconciliation. Jen made her a plate of food, and I asked her if she was still planning on skipping the wedding. "Yes," she said, "because of Mark's simple mistake." A simple mistake? Proposing to my fiancé 3 feet away from me? I reminded her of the gravity of his actions. Then Jen, sensing the familiar dance, asked why she was really here if she hadn't changed her mind. My mom, looking flustered, admitted she'd actually hoped to catch Jen alone, to talk her into inviting Mark again. Jen, utterly composed, told her she wouldn't have that conversation, especially not without me. And that's when my mother snapped. She called Jen spineless, unable to think for herself. The argument exploded. Jen, her voice shaking with righteous anger, told my mother to get out. As Jen moved to unlock the front door, my mother lunged. She grabbed Jen's hair, yanking her to the ground, screaming about Jen tearing our family apart. She hit Jen, clawing at her face. My entire body surged with an animalistic protectiveness. I pulled my mother off Jen, bodily dragged her to the door, and threw her outside. She pounded on the door, still screaming and calling us names, until she finally left. My first thought was Jen. Was she okay? Physically, she was shaken, a few scratches, but the emotional wound was deep. When I called my dad, he just made excuses, blaming stress. My sisters, however, confirmed what I already knew: our mother has always been this crazy. Jen, in her incredible strength, initially refused to press charges, just wanting to cut all contact. But my sisters and I convinced her that at the very least, we needed to document this with the police. This wasn't just stress, this was physical assault. This whole mess really brought into sharp focus just how fundamentally broken my relationship with my parents, especially my mom, truly was. Mark was always the golden child. Growing up, my sisters and I were practically invisible compared to him. He got the expensive clothes, the new toys, the special outings, while we shared hand-me-downs. If Mark messed up, I got punished for not being a good role model. When he pushed a kid down the stairs at 8, I was grounded and told to apologize. When I worked 2 jobs to buy my first car at 18, my mom strong-armed me into signing it over to Mark, threatening to kick me out if I refused. My parents even skipped my high school graduation because Mark didn't want to sit through the ceremony. This wasn't just parental favoritism, it was a deeply ingrained pattern of emotional abuse and neglect, all centered around Mark. I had moved away for college, cutting contact completely, only tentatively starting to reconcile for my sister Charlotte, who wanted our entire family present for the birth of her first child. I hoped they had changed. But now, it was clear they hadn't. After the assault, Jen and I decided enough was enough. We filed a police report, though Jen still asked them to keep her preferences in mind. The police advised us to document everything. A few days later, my mom ambushed me outside my job, screaming that I was ruining her life and couldn't understand why she was being punished for a small misunderstanding. When I refused to tell the police to drop the report, she threw a full-blown tantrum, hitting my chest and arm until security intervened. That evening, Jen and I had a long, painful talk. We decided to go completely no contact with my parents, and most of my extended family, for good. We're moving away, putting hundreds of miles between us and their toxicity. I called my dad, letting him know, with my mom on the line. I told them that Mark's actions, and their enabling, had proven that nothing was actually repaired between us. Their world revolved around Mark and my mom, and I was done being a scapegoat. I told my mom I would never forgive her for what she did to Jen, or to my sisters and me growing up. She started crying, actually saying she regretted having me, that I'd only tried to ruin her life. Jen, bless her heart, unleashed a barrage of colorful words, telling my mom exactly what a disgusting person she was for saying something like that. My dad tried to make me understand my mom's struggles, saying we were family and shouldn't let past mistakes stop us. I told him he was wrong, that they only ever cared about Mark and themselves, and then I hung up. I sent a long email to my entire family, attaching links to my posts, uninviting everyone except my sisters and my aunt and uncle from the wedding. Jen held me as I cried, assuring me we'd be okay. Even Mark, when I spoke to him, didn't argue, just wished me the best with the wedding. We're moving 3 hours away, closer to Jen's brother, and we're downsizing our wedding even further. Jen's dad has even offered us his lake house for the ceremony. It's a huge, overwhelming change, but after everything, it feels like we're finally starting fresh, building a life free from their toxic shadow. It's terrifying, but also incredibly liberating. My mother may have tried to tear us apart, but all she did was solidify Jen and I into an unbreakable team. Have you ever had to cut off family, even when it felt like the hardest thing in the world? Tell me what you think, I really want to know.